So if you say the word hero to, the average person, where does their mind immediately jump to?
Oh, it's almost always the cinema, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's the Marvel universe. It's, capes, gamma radiation, that sort of thing.
or maybe if you ground it a bit more, it's like a firefighter running into a burning building,
Yeah.
a soldier, something dramatic.
High drama,
Yeah.
exactly. It's loud, it's spectacular, and I think this is the key part, it feels like it's for someone else.
Yes. It feels genetic. Like you're either born with the hero gene or you're just, you're watching from the sidelines.
You're eating the popcorn.
Right. It feels accessible only to this tiny chosen few. But the reason we're doing this deep dive today is that we're looking at a body of work that basically argues the opposite. It suggests that heroism is, well, it's more of a manufacturing process.
I love that framing. It's not an event, it's an operating system.
An operating system. That's good.
Yeah. And that's what we're dissecting today. We're getting into the Everyday Hero Manifesto by Robin Sharma. And his core argument is that the heroism we see on the news or in the history books, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
The real work, the huge part of the iceberg that's underwater, is a series of very specific, almost boring habits that he argues anyone can replicate.
See, anyone is a strong word because I'm looking at the source material here and we're covering some absolute titans. We've got Formula One champions, founding fathers of America, Renaissance geniuses. It feels a little intimidating to just say, oh yeah, anyone can do this.
It does, and that's the trap, right? That's the mental block. Sharma's entire career has basically been built on dismantling that exact intimidation factor. His whole premise is that mediocrity is a choice we make, not, a destiny we're assigned.
He uses this phrase that really stuck with me, dormant genius.
Yes. The idea that everyone has this reservoir potential that they've just forgotten how to access because, the world hypnotizes you with fear or with comfort, which can be even more dangerous.
So our mission today is to kind of decode that operating system you mentioned. We're not just looking for feel-good inspiration here. We're looking for the schematics.
The actual how-to.
The how-to. How do you engineer resilience? How do you, and I love this, gamify your own character? How do you turn the idea of service into like a competitive advantage in your life?
And we're going to do it by looking at some truly wild stories. I mean, we're talking about a man who has read his last rites, and then 40 days later was competing at the absolute elite level of his sport.
Unbelievable. And on the other end of the spectrum, a fifth-grade history teacher who was secretly a war hero.
It's an amazing range.
So let's start with the architect of all this, with Robin Sharma himself, because his story is really the first data point in the whole manifesto. He wasn't always this, monk who sold his Ferrari guru.
Oh, far from it. Not at all. In his early 30s, Sharma was a litigation lawyer, and if you were to look at his life from the outside, by all societal metrics, he was winning.
He had the checklist.
He had the checklist. Great income, the social status, the right car, the right suits, all of it.
The Canadian dream, I guess.
The Canadian dream, right. But he describes this time in his life as a profound, empty victory. He'd wake up, look in the mirror, and just feel this deep sense of dislike. A disconnection from the person staring back at him.
I think that's a very specific kind of pain that we don't talk about enough. The pain of getting exactly what you thought you wanted.
And realizing it's the wrong thing.
And it's hollow.
It might be the worst kind of pain because you can't even complain about it. Who feels sorry for the successful lawyer,
Right.
But that internal crisis, that spiritual starvation, it forced a pivot. He didn't just quit his job and go find another one. He isolated himself.
Or did that look like?
He spent about 3 years stripping his life down to the studs and just studying. He called it studying titans and geniuses. He was obsessed with one question. Is greatness a fluke? Is it luck? Or is it a code that can be cracked?
And the first part of that code he found, which is really the foundation of this entire book, is the morning. Now, I have to be a bit of a skeptic here for a second.
Go for it.
Morning routines have become such a cliche in the self-help world.
Yeah.
Drink some lemon water, journal for 5 minutes, and suddenly you're a CEO. Is Sharma actually bringing something new to the table here?
He is, and the difference is in the nuance. It's subtle, but it's critical. Most of the productivity gurus, the hustle culture guys, they focus exclusively on what Sharma calls mindset.
Right. The psychology, think positive, visualize your goals.
The grind set, exactly. But Sharma's argument is that mindset is only 1/4 of the equation. It's only 25%. You can have the best strategy in the world. You can be the most optimistic person on the planet. But if you have a toxic heart set, you will find a way to self-sabotage every time.
Okay, let's unpack heart set.
Yeah.
Because that sounds a little bit fluffy, a little soft.
It sounds soft, but it's actually the hardware the whole system runs on. Heart set is your emotional world. It's all the unhealed trauma, the repressed anger from a fight you had last week, the lingering sadness from a loss 10 years ago.
Self-taught to just push down.
Exactly. We live in a culture that teaches us to intellectualize everything and feel almost nothing. Be professional, don't be emotional. So we suppress it.
So we're trying to run this like high-performance software, our mindset, on a computer hard drive that's just full of corrupted files and viruses.
That is the perfect analogy. If your heart set is blocked, if you're carrying around a lot of resentment or fear, it acts like an emotional break. You won't take that risk at work. Not because you're not smart enough, that's mindset, but because you're scared. That's heart set.
So the morning routine isn't just about getting hyped up for the day. It's actually about cleaning house emotionally.
Like emotional hygiene, yes. And then he adds the other two pillars.
Yeah.
There's health set, which is obvious. Body. Physiology drives psychology. You can't change the world if you feel terrible and have no energy. But the last one, soul set, is the one I think most people skip, even if they have a routine.
That's the spiritual part.
It is, but you can strip the religion out of it if that's not your thing.
Yeah.
Soul set is really about connecting to your purpose and remembering your mortality. It's taking 5 minutes to think, life is short. What am I really serving today? What's bigger than just my to-do list or my bank account?
So he suggests this 20-20-20 split, right? Or even just 5 minutes on each of these four interiors, as he calls them.
Even just 5 minutes. The idea is that you win the morning to win the day. So by the time you walk out your front door, you've already aligned your brain, your heart, your body, and your soul. You've taken off what he calls the armor of doubt that society puts on you the minute you check your phone.
You're not becoming a hero in the morning.
Yeah.
You're remembering the hero that was already there.
Exactly. You're remembering who you were before the world told you to be average and afraid.
Okay, so that handles a calm Tuesday morning commute. But what about when the train goes completely off the rails? Because the real test of this hero operating system isn't when things are going well.
Yeah.
It's when things are catastrophic.
And that brings us right to the second pillar of the manifesto, resilience. Or, as Sharma puts it much more poetically, the alchemy of pain.
And for this we have to talk about Niki Lauda. Even if you don't know anything about Formula One, this story it's honestly horrifying.
It's visceral. So the date is August 1st, 1976. It's the German Grand Prix at a track called the Nürburgring.
Which had a nickname.
It was called the Green Hell, and for good reason. It was incredibly dangerous. On this day, it's raining, the track is slick. Lauda, who was the reigning world champion, had actually tried to get the other drivers to boycott the race because it was too dangerous.
Wow.
He was outvoted. They race.
The foreshadowing is just chilling.
Isn't it? On the second lap, something fails in his Ferrari's suspension. He spins out, hits an embankment at over 100 miles an hour. The car doesn't just crash, it basically turns into a bomb. The fuel tank ruptures and ignites. Lauda is trapped in the cockpit.
And the details here are they're crucial. He wasn't just stuck.
Oh no. He was trapped inside a fire that was estimated to be around 800 degrees Fahrenheit, that's about 425 Celsius. For 43 seconds, the toxic fumes from the burning plastic and fuel were searing his lungs. The fire was literally melting his face and scalp.
By the time other drivers managed to pull him from the wreckage, he was still conscious, which just seems, worse somehow.
It's unimaginable. He fell into a coma at the hospital. The doctors looked at his injuries, especially the damage to his lungs, and gave him basically zero chance of survival. A priest was brought in and performed the last rites.
On paper, he was gone.
He was dead. But this is where the theory we were just talking about, the mindset, the heart set, it stops being theory and becomes a survival mechanism. Lauda later described lying in that hospital bed in absolute agony, and he could hear the doctors outside his room talking about how he was going to die, and he just got angry.
Anger as a fuel.
He used it. He decided consciously to fight with his brain. He knew if he fell too deep into sleep, he wouldn't wake up. So he forced himself to stay aware. He would listen to the nurse's footsteps in the hallway, the beeping of the machines, anything to keep his brain active and firing. He made a decision: I am not dying today.
And the recovery is just, the word miracle gets thrown around a lot, but this has to qualify.
It absolutely defies medical logic. He had to have his lungs vacuumed out repeatedly to remove all the toxic soot and fluid, a procedure so painful that most people would just pass out from the shock. He endured it while he was awake.
And then? What, 6 weeks later?
40 days, 40. 40 days later, he is back at a racetrack at the Italian Grand Prix to compete.
40 days after a priest read him his last rites.
He had to have a specially designed helmet to fit over the bandages on his head. When he took the helmet off after the race, the balaclava he wore underneath was soaked in blood because the frisson had ripped all the scabs from his burns open.
And he finished 4th.
He finished 4th place against the best rivals on Earth.
It's superhuman. It feels like a story about a superhero, which brings me back to my earlier point. Most people listening to this are not Formula One drivers. We're not, hopefully, going to be trapped in a burning car. So how does this extreme, almost unbelievable example help the person who just got laid off or is going through a tough divorce?
And that's the crucial translation we have to make. Sharma isn't saying, go be more like Niki Lauda. He's saying, look at the cognitive reframe that happened.
Right.
When that crash happened, Lauda's first question wasn't, why me? That's the victim's question.
Right.
He immediately, instinctively asked, what is this situation here to teach me? And how can I use this?
He didn't just endure the pain, he converted it into focus.
He used it as fuel. Sharma argues that suffering is a purification process. It's horrible, but it burns away the trivial stuff. It burns away your ego, your vanity, your small worries. Lauda realized that a life of total safety and comfort doesn't make you a hero. Survival does. Discomfort is the soil where your greatness actually grows.
So if your life is too easy, your character's probably too soft.
That's the argument. So when you're going through hell, you don't just keep going. You have to look for the lesson that's hidden in the fire.
You use the fire. You let it forge you into something stronger.
Precisely.
That's intense. But let's dial it back from that level of intensity, because you can't and shouldn't rely on a life-threatening disaster to build your character every day. That's just not a sustainable strategy.
No, you'd burn out. Literally, in his case.
So we need a system for the boring days, the Wednesdays, the days when you just don't feel like doing the right thing. And for this, Sharma points to a man who basically tried to engineer his own personality.
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin. This is segment 3, gamifying character. And I love this section because it takes all the vague, fluffy emotion out of being a good person and turns it into data.
It appeals to the inner spreadsheet nerd in all of us.
It really does. Franklin called it his bold and arduous project of arriving at moral perfection, which, let's be honest, sounds unbelievably arrogant.
It does. It sounds like something only a founding father would say. But the actual execution of it was incredibly humble and systematic. Franklin realized that willpower isn't this magical force. It's a finite resource, like a muscle.
You can't just wake up and say, today I will be perfect in every way.
You'll fail by 9 a.m. You'll fail before you've had your first coffee. So he treated it like an engineering problem. He broke it down.
Could you walk us through the system he created?
Sure. He started by identifying 13 virtues he wanted to master. Things like temperance, silence, order, frugality, industry, humility, the classics.
Okay.
Then he got a little book and drew a grid. 13 rows, 1 for each virtue, and 7 columns across the top for the days of the week.
And the key was, he didn't try to tackle all 13 at once.
No, that's the classic New Year's resolution mistake, right? I'm going to change everything starting Monday. It never works. Instead, he focused on only 1 virtue per week.
So week 1.
Week 1 was temperance. The rule was eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation.
Sure.
That was his only job for 7 days. And every time he failed, every evening, he'd have to put a little black dot in the box for that day.
So he's literally tracking his moral failures like a sales metric.
Exactly. It's a data visualization for your soul. And the real genius was in the sequencing. He believed in what we now call progressive overload, just like in weightlifting.
How does that apply here?
Well, he put temperance first for a reason. If you can master the discipline of controlling your physical appetites, what you eat and drink, you've strengthened your willpower muscle. Now you have more strength to tackle the next virtue, which was silence.
Controlling your tongue.
Yeah.
Avoiding trivial gossip.
Which is much harder. And once you master that, you have the strength for order and then resolution and so on. Each virtue builds on the foundation of the last.
So he would do a full cycle of all 13 virtues in 13 weeks.
Right. 4 full cycles every year. And he did this for decades.
Did he ever?
What?
Did he ever get a perfect week? A clean sheet, no black dots?
Never. And he was very open about that. He wrote in his autobiography, "I was surprised to find myself so much fuller of faults than I had imagined." But, and this is the whole point of the exercise, he said he was a far better and happier man for having made the attempt than he would have been if he hadn't.
The process made him better, even if the goal of perfection was impossible.
The process was the point.
I think the actionable advice for anyone listening is so clear here. You can literally draw this grid on a piece of paper right now. Stop just wishing you were more disciplined or more patient and start tracking it.
What gets measured gets managed. We do it for our money, we do it for our fitness, our daily steps, but we almost never do it for our character. Sharma's saying, hey, turn it into a game. Make it a project, not just a vague hope.
Okay, so we've covered the inner world, that's the morning routine. We've covered resilience, the Niki Lauda crash, and now we have character, the Franklin grid. These are all intensely internal. They're about me becoming a better version of me.
Yes.
But the manifesto argues pretty forcefully that this is all completely pointless if it just stays inside you.
Right. At a certain point, self-improvement without service just becomes a form of narcissism. The hero arc has to pivot outward. It has to be about other people.
And this brings us to segment 4, service and what Sharma calls the 10x value obsession.
Yeah.
And there's a story here that he tells that is, it's so small, it's so quiet. But honestly, it hit me harder than the Niki Lauda story.
I know exactly the one you mean. The story of the cafe manager. It's the perfect counterbalance to that high-octane Formula One drama.
Can you set the scene for us?
Of course. So there's this cafe manager. She's very dedicated, runs a tight ship. And she has these 2 regular customers, an elderly couple. They come in every single morning like clockwork. And they have a ritual.
The ritual is everything.
It is. It's always the same order. 2 coffees, 1 pastry, and 2 forks. They share the pastry every single day.
Until one day they just stop coming.
Right. Which, if you work in the service industry, you know that's always a worrying sign with elderly regulars. Weeks go by, no sign of them.
Right.
And one day the manager is out running errands and she spots the woman, the wife, standing in line at a bank. But something is clearly wrong.
How so?
She looks lost, disheveled, confused, almost frightened. The manager goes up to her, gently asks if she's okay, and the woman just crumbles. She explains that her husband had passed away a few weeks ago.
And then she says this line that it just breaks your heart.
It's devastating. She says, I don't know how to drink coffee alone. It's not about the coffee, is it? It's about the entire structure of her life has been shattered. Now, a mediocre person in that situation offers their condolences and walks away. A good person might send a sympathy card, but the everyday hero does something else entirely.
The manager looks at her and says, come back at the cafe, I'll drink it with you.
And she does. She walks the woman back to the cafe. She sits her down at their usual table. And then, and this is the detail that gives me chills every time, the manager goes and gets the order.
2 coffees.
1 pastry and 2 forks. She honors the ritual. She steps into that empty space left by the husband just for a moment to provide a feeling of safety and normalcy in the middle of chaos.
Sharma calls this concept the 10x value obsession. And I'll admit, it feels a little strange to apply that kind of business speak to such a tender human moment.
It does, but that's actually why I think it's so powerful. Sharma is arguing that this is the ultimate business strategy. The product that Cafe was selling was never just the caffeine and the sugar. The real product was the feeling of community, of being known, of belonging. The manager delivered 10 times the expected value of that transaction. She wasn't just a vendor, she was a lifeline.
There's that great Maya Angelou quote, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
That's it, precisely. And if you apply that mindset to your career, it doesn't matter if you're a coder, a real estate agent, a teacher, if you become obsessed with delivering 10x the human value, with making people feel seen and cared for, you become indispensable. You don't just get customers, you create superfans.
You move from being transactional to being relational.
Yes. And notice the link back to the very first thing we talked about. You cannot offer that level of deep empathy if you yourself are running on empty. If your own heart set is blocked and full of your own problems, the manager could only give that gift because she had the emotional surplus to do so.
That's a great point. You can't pour from an empty cup. Okay, so speaking of filling things up, let's talk about filling the brain. Because there's a whole section here called the Da Vinci Code. And the big myth we're trying to bust here is the talent myth.
Oh, the natural-born genius fallacy. It's so seductive. We love to look at someone like Leonardo da Vinci and just say, well, his brain was just wired differently. He was a one-off. I can't do that. Sharma just says that's rubbish. Da Vinci wasn't a magician. He was just an obsessive worker.
Sharma actually lists some of the items from the to-do lists found in Da Vinci's private notebooks, and they are delightfully strange.
They are my favorite part of the entire book. Just bizarre.
Things like, describe the jaw of a crocodile, analyze the placenta of a calf, and my personal favorite, Define the anatomy of a woodpecker's tongue.
I mean, who wakes up in the morning and decides that today is the day they need to fully understand the mechanics of a woodpecker's tongue?
A person who is pathologically, relentlessly curious.
Exactly. And Sharma boils this down into what he calls a six-step genius formula, but the two core principles are mining curiosity, treating your curiosity like a precious resource, and blending disciplines. Da Vinci saw no wall between art and science and engineering. To paint a perfect smile, which is art, he had to dissect human facial muscles, which is anatomy.
There's also the point he makes about ridiculous patience. That one feels particularly relevant today.
Oh, massively. We live in this world of instant gratification. Da Vinci would sometimes just stand and stare at a canvas, like the Last Supper, for days or weeks without making a single brushstroke.
Today, we'd call that procrastination or wasting time. We'd feel guilty.
We'd be checking our email. But for him, that was the work. He was working internally. He was visualizing the perfect stroke so that he only had to make it once.
So, okay, how do we apply this? I can't just spend 3 weeks staring at my laptop screen without typing anything. My boss would, have some questions.
Right. So the practical application Sharma suggests is something he calls the 60-minute student regime. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's committing to one non-negotiable hour every single day, dedicated to deep study.
And not just, scrolling news articles.
Not keeping up with your industry. This is deep learning, reading the hard book, taking the online course, deliberately practicing a new skill until you're better at it.
Why is this so critical, especially right now?
Sharma uses a phrase that I think is brilliant. Education is inoculation against irrelevance. Think about the speed of change right now with AI and automation and everything else. If you are just resting on the skills you learned 5 or 10 years ago, you are already becoming obsolete. You just might not know it yet.
So to be a hero in your own life, to protect your own career and your family, you have to be a heavy, constant learner.
It's a survival mechanism, not a hobby. If you're not actively growing, you are passively dying. There is no such thing as standing still.
Wow. Inoculation against irrelevance. That really reframes it.
It does.
Okay, so let's recap. We've built the morning routine, we've hardened our resilience, we're practicing our character virtues, we're serving others, and we're learning relentlessly. But there is a cost to all of this. And this is the part of the manifesto that I think makes a lot of people uncomfortable.
It does. It's the price of courage, because authenticity isn't free.
And the case study Sharma uses here is, well, it's a very controversial one, Sinead O'Connor.
The 1992 Saturday Night Live incident.
Yes. Now, we need to be really clear here. We're not taking any sides on the specific politics or the religion involved. That's not the point. The point is to analyze the act of leadership that Sharma's holding up as an example.
Exactly. We're looking at the mechanics of the risk she took. So for context, O'Connor was at the absolute peak of her fame. Her song Nothing Compares to You was one of the biggest songs in the world.
She was a global superstar.
A-list. She's the musical guest on SNL. She's supposed to sing a Bob Marley song. Instead, she sings it a cappella, changing the lyrics to be about child abuse. And at the end, she holds up a photograph of Pope John Paul II to the camera and tears it into pieces on live television.
And the fallout was, nuclear is probably the right word.
It was instantaneous cancellation, before cancel culture was even a term. She was booed off the stage at her next major performance. Radio stations banned her music. Her commercial career was effectively over in that single moment.
So the question is, why does Sharma, a leadership expert, frame this as a hero moment? By all conventional metrics, it was a catastrophe. She lost everything.
She lost her popularity. But, Sharma argues, she kept her integrity, and that is the critical distinction. He quotes her from an interview years later where she said, "An artist's job is sometimes not to be popular. An artist's job is to create conversation."
That's the difference between being an influencer and being a leader.
That's it in a nutshell. We live in an influencer culture where the primary goal is to be liked by the maximum number of people, and that almost always requires you to be bland, agreeable, and inoffensive. Sharma argues that true heroism, what he calls truth-telling, requires the opposite. It means you have to stand for your values even when your voice shakes, and even when it costs you everything.
There's a saying, if your values never cost you anything, they aren't values. They're just preferences.
That's the line in the sand. And it forces you, the listener, to ask a really uncomfortable question. Where in my life am I compromising my truth just to keep the peace? Where am I staying silent because I'm afraid of being disliked or rocking the boat? The hero speaks up.
This brings us to the final piece of the whole puzzle. The legacy. What it's all for. And we're going to come full circle here. right back to Robin Sharma's own life story. Because the ultimate hero of this entire manifesto isn't Niki Lauda or Da Vinci or Ben Franklin.
No, it's a fifth-grade history teacher from his childhood named Cora Greenaway.
I love this story because
Yeah.
it's so human and relatable. Young Robin Sharma, as a kid, he wasn't the most likely to succeed.
Not at all. He says the system had pretty much written him off. Other teachers told his parents he had minimal potential, but this one teacher, Cora Greenaway, saw something different in him. She told him that everyone has dignified virtues inside them. She was the one person who believed in him before he believed in himself.
We all had that one teacher if we're really lucky, the one who changes the trajectory.
We do. But here's the twist. The reveal that Sharma saves for the end of the book. Years later, as an adult, he starts digging into her past. He wants to know more about this woman who changed his life. And he finds out that Cora Greenaway wasn't just a sweet lady in a cardigan who taught history. During World War II, she was a member of the Dutch resistance.
It's incredible.
She went behind enemy lines. She risked summary execution day after day to smuggle Jewish children out of Nazi-occupied territory and away from the death camps. She saved lives in the most literal, high-stakes, dangerous sense you can possibly imagine.
And then, after the war, she moves to Canada and spends the rest of her career in a quiet classroom teaching fifth graders about history.
And saving children there, too, just from a different kind of enemy. She wasn't saving them from soldiers anymore. She was saving them from self-doubt. She was saving them from mediocrity.
That is the absolute definition of the everyday hero. You would never know her past just by looking at her. She was quiet, she was humble, but she was mighty.
She embodies what Sharma calls the people builder's mantra, which is just leave everyone you meet better than you found them. It doesn't matter if that means pulling them out of a war zone or just telling a little kid he's smart. It comes from the same place. It's the same heroic muscle.
And that really connects everything we've talked about today, doesn't it? The morning routine prepares you for the day. The resilience keeps you going when you get knocked down. The character grid guides your choices. The service connects you to others. The learning keeps you relevant and sharp. The courage allows you to stand for something. And it all culminates in that, in legacy.
It's a complete ecosystem, a closed loop. You can't just pull one piece out and expect the rest of it to work. It all supports each other.
Now, before we wrap this up, we do have to be fair. Is there a critique to be made of this book? Some people read Sharma and they say this is too simple, or these chapters are so short, it's just a collection of sound bites.
And that's a valid criticism if what you're looking for is a dense academic textbook on psychology. This is not that book. It says what it is right on the cover. It's a manifesto.
Right.
It's designed to be punchy. It's designed to be read in short bursts to get you fired up and get you into action. The simplicity is a feature, not a bug.
Because complexity is the enemy of execution.
Exactly. The Franklin Grid is incredibly simple to understand. The hard part is doing it for 50 years. Niki Lauda's mindset of how can I use this? The simple. The hard part is holding on to it while you're literally on fire. Sharma gives you the simple map. You still have to walk the difficult terrain.
So to leave everyone listening with a final thought, Sharma quotes his father in the book, and it's this hauntingly beautiful line that completely flips the script on how we think about life and death.
It's a powerful one. When you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice.
I just want you, the listener, to really sit with that for a second. If your story ended right now, today, when you took your last breath, would you be able to rejoice? Would you feel that you emptied the tank, that you actually used that dormant genius we talked about at the beginning?
It's the ultimate audit, isn't it? Are you living your life for your resume, or are you living it for your eulogy?
That dormant genius doesn't do anybody any good if it just stays dormant. The mission is to wake it up.
Wake it up. That's
Yeah.
the whole game.
Thanks for diving deep with us on this one.
A pleasure, as always.
We'll see you on the next one.